Okay, let's get into this. I want you to try something with me. Just a quick mental exercise before we start. I want you to imagine time travel.
All right, I'm with you. My mind is open.
But, and here's the catch, you're not allowed to picture a machine. So, no DeLorean leaving fire trails in a mall parking lot.
Okay. No DeLorean.
No blue police box showing up on a street corner.
Mm-hmm.
No wormholes, no spinning gyroscopes. I want you to picture a sound, just a melody, a frequency.
That's a fascinating place to start.
Yeah.
A really interesting frame. Because usually when we talk about time travel, especially in the kind of material we look at, we're talking about physics.
Right, mechanics.
We're talking about bending space-time, light cones, gravity wells, all of that. But today, we're looking at art as the mechanism, a song as the time machine.
Exactly. We are diving deep into a mystery that spans, well, exactly 30 years to the day. We're looking at a track called Cristallo Vivente, which translates to Living Crystal by this artist, Radio-mannadoro.
And the timing is everything here.
The timing is the whole point. Here's the hook, and it's why we're doing this deep dive today, specifically. This song was written and recorded in the analog age, back in 1996.
Think about 1996 for a second. The internet was, what, a dial-up novelty for most people.
Barely even that. But the source material, the artist's own manifesto, claims that this song was entangled with and essentially predicts the reality of right now, today, Monday, January 26th, 2026.
It's a huge claim. I mean, it's an almost unbelievable claim. And to really get our heads around it, we have to kind of suspend our normal skeptical view of linear time. We've got a stack of sources here that is, well, eclectic might be the most generous way to put it.
It's the weirdest stack we've had in a long, long time. I was going through it last night and just shaking my head.
It really is. On one hand, we have the artist's own manifesto, which is this incredibly dense, almost cryptic text. It's full of Gnosticism, ideas about vibration, cyclical history.
It's a heavy read.
Oh, it's incredibly heavy. Then we have lectures from a Professor Jiang on something called the antenna theory of consciousness, which is pure neuroscience crashing headfirst into metaphysics.
And then, to ground it all, or maybe to make it even weirder, I can't decide, we have this deep history of science fiction and aliens from Professor Jim Endersby, and alongside that, some very, very specific data pulled from Star Trek databases.
Yeah, the Star Trek stuff really threw me for a loop at first.
I know it sounds like a strange cocktail, Gnosticism, neuroscience, and Star Trek. But trust me, as I was reading through all this material, it all started to click into place. The central premise is that Radio-mannadoro is saying this work wasn't inspired by the internet.
Which is a crucial point.
It's everything, because let's be honest, in 1996, the internet wasn't the collective hive mind it is today. You couldn't just Google future societal collapse and get a million hits.
No, absolutely not. That kind of networked consciousness didn't exist for the public. And that's what makes the artist's claims so powerful. The inspiration, they say, came from vibrational entanglement. The idea that the song is a subconscious frequency pattern. He says he knew before knowing that he was capturing a signal from the future, from our present, without even really understanding what he was putting down on tape.
Which brings us to our mission for this deep dive. We aren't just going to review a song, we're going to use it as a launch pad to explore these huge questions. Is history really a spiral fractal like the artist claims?
Are our brains just antennas tuning into some kind of universal broadcast?
And why does this artist argue that logos, words, logic, the very things we're using to have this conversation are actually a prison, and that music is the only key to the cage?
It's a journey into the nature of reality itself, really, and our perception of it.
So let's start with the artifact, the song itself, Cristallo Vivente.
The living crystal.
The source material is very clear that this is the track to focus on, written 30 years ago. But there's this bizarre detail in the artist's text where he makes this claim, and you can't tell if it's poetic or if he means it literally, that when he wrote it, he was little more than 100 years old.
Which immediately sets a strange tone, doesn't it? It frames the artist not as some guy in his 20s in a garage band, but as this ancient observer.
An old soul.
At the very least, an old soul. Someone who feels like they've seen these cycles repeat before. But the date is what we have to keep coming back to. The source material is all about the 2026 remaster. It specifically flags today's date. The remastering of this old analog track is presented as more than just a technical update, you know.
It's not just making the bass sound better.
Not at all. It's presented as the closing of a loop. The frequency that was sent out in 1996 is finally being received clearly in high fidelity in 2026. The message in a bottle has washed ashore.
So let's spend some real time on the lyrics here. Because when I first read them, I thought, okay, this is some abstract kind of dark poetry. But when you hold them up like a lens to the world of 2026, they get uncomfortable.
They really do.
The opening lines are, Vento tra le foglie, Sofia elettricità, termando musicando il tempo che Sofia.
Which translates roughly to wind traverses the leaves, blowing electricity, trembling, playing music, the time that blows.
Blowing electricity. In 1996, now obviously I know electricity existed in 96, that's not the point, but the image, wind moving through leaves, something so natural, and it's blowing electricity. It feels like he's describing the ambient hum of the digital age before it had even fully arrived.
It's a perfect juxtaposition of the organic and the synthetic, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Wind traverses the leaves. That's a beautiful natural image. But it's blowing electricity. It reminds me of how we talk about the cloud now. It's this invisible force. It's everywhere like the wind, but it's purely electric. It's data, information.
And the second line, trembling, playing music, the time that blows. He's not saying time ticks. He's saying time blows, like a storm.
He's linking time directly to this electric wind. Time isn't a clock on the wall anymore. It's a weather system that you're caught in. And it's playing music, which suggests there's a pattern to it, a frequency, even if it feels chaotic.
And from there, it gets even darker. He talks about infrared memories, memory ad infrarosso, and then the line, memories to no more I can't.
That phrase, infrared memories, that really stuck with me. Let's just break that down physically for a second. What is infrared?
It's light, but it's on the spectrum just below red, right? We can't see it.
Exactly. It's light that has a longer wavelength than visible light. Our eyes can't perceive it, but we can feel it. We feel it as heat. So if you have infrared memories, what are you really talking about?
You're talking about memories you can't see. You can't visualize them. You can't picture the face or the room clearly. But you can feel the heat of them. You can feel the emotional temperature.
But that is actually a really profound way to describe nostalgia, isn't it? Or trauma. Or even something like déjà vu, that feeling that something has happened before, but you can't quite grasp the image.
Or, if we stick with the time travel theme, maybe it's prophecy. Well, maybe he's saying he has memories of the future, our present, 2026. He can't see it because it hasn't happened for him yet. It's not in his visible spectrum. But he can feel the heat of it radiating backward through time.
He was feeling the heat of the fire before the match was even struck.
That's it. And that line, memories to no more I can't, it suggests a total sensory overload. The signal is too strong. He's trying to process this heat, this invisible light from the future, and it's just overwhelming his capacity to remember or even function.
And that feeling of being overwhelmed leads right into the title concept, the living crystal. The chorus goes, Cristallo Vivente, che tisa e che si prende.
Living crystal that uses you and takes you.
Okay, we have to stop here and really unpack this metaphor, living crystal. In 1996, if you said crystal, people thought of what, New Age healing shops?
Yeah.
Or maybe just geology.
Yeah, rocks.
But in 2026, what is the fundamental element that runs our entire world? Silicon, which is a crystal. The processors in our phones, the servers running the AI that manages global logistics, the fiber optic cables under the ocean, it's all crystal. We are living inside a global, living crystal network.
But the lyric is so specific that uses you and takes you. It's not that you use. It implies the crystal has the agency. It implies the crystal isn't just a tool we built.
It's the master.
It's the master. And that connects us directly to the Star Trek source material in a way I just did not see coming. When I hear living crystal, that consumes and takes, I immediately think of the crystalline entity.
From the Next Generation. Oh, absolutely. The giant, terrifying space snowflake.
I remember that being so beautiful, but also just absolutely horrifying.
It's an iconic piece of sci-fi design. In the Star Trek database, the crystalline entity is described as this massive, shimmering, beautiful structure that just drifts through space. It looks like a diamond spider web. It's capable of warp speed. It's incredibly powerful. But the key is what it does. What is its purpose?
It consumes, right?
Yeah.
It eats planets.
It strips planets of all life. It absorbs everything organic, trees, grass, animals, people. It converts all of it into energy for itself and leaves the planet a dead, sterile rock. It is breathtakingly beautiful, and it is purely destructive to biological life.
That uses you and takes you. That sounds exactly like that entity. So if we map that onto our 2026 reality, are we saying the internet or AI or this whole silicon age we're in is the crystalline entity.
I think the parallel is almost impossible to ignore. I mean, think about it. We have built this beautiful, shimmering digital structure. It connects the globe. It glows from our screens. It's elegant. But what does it feed on?
Our attention.
Our attention, our time, our biology in a way.
Our organic matter.
Yes, it converts our biological time, our lived experience, into digital data, into energy for the system. We stare into the crystal screens and it takes us. It absorbs our lives, our relationships, our thoughts. The artist, writing in 1996, seems to have sensed this coming entity, this beautiful crystalline structure that was also fundamentally parasitic.
That is a chilling thought, especially when you think about the design of modern algorithms. They are literally engineered to take you, to capture and hold your attention for as long as possible.
And the lyrics go on to describe the social result of this consumption. We are among you, the psychophysical collapses, the critical breakdowns.
Psychophysical collapses. That's such a clinical, medical-sounding phrase for a song lyric. It's not heartbreak or sadness. It's psychophysical collapse.
It sounds like a diagnosis from a medical journal. And you just have to look around in the mid-2020s. What is the defining crisis of our time? It's not just economic, it's mental. The epidemic of burnout, the anxiety crisis, the complete collapse of the distinction between work and life, between our public and private selves.
The source material mentions the mood of the song is pitch black silence. And that fits. It's not a loud, violent collapse. It's a quiet, internal one.
Exactly. It's not a collapse of buildings and bridges. It's a collapse of the psyche. Critical breakdowns. If you look at the public health statistics on anxiety, depression, the feeling of being overwhelmed, it feels like a frighteningly accurate prediction of the emotional state of the digital age.
And then there's this really cryptic line. We were doing experiments on the street, being part of an old project by now, forgotten and abandoned forever. What on earth is that old project?
That's one of the most mysterious lines in the whole song, experiments on the street. My first thought is that it could be a reference to the counterculture movements of the past, the 60s, the 70s, the idea that we could build a different kind of society.
A more human one.
A more human one. A society based on love or community or protest or art. Real-world experiments in living.
And now that project is forgotten and abandoned forever.
It's been replaced. Replaced by the living crystal. We stopped experimenting with how to live together on the street, in the physical, organic world, and we all moved inside and started living in the crystal network instead. The old project of humanity, face-to-face, messy, organic connection, has been abandoned for the clean, cold, crystalline one.
Okay, so we have this artifact, this song from 30 years ago that seems to be describing a silicon-based, all-consuming future where we're all quietly having nervous breakdowns. But the question that keeps nagging at me is, how? How does a guy in 1996 do this? I mean, really? Is it just a lucky guess? A coincidence?
Or is there an actual biological mechanism at play? Because this is where we have to bring in Professor Jiang's work. His theory changes the entire conversation.
The antenna theory.
The antenna theory. This is where we have to pivot from art criticism to, well, a very theoretical branch of neuroscience. Professor Jiang argues that we have a fundamental misunderstanding of what the brain is and what it does. We tend to think of the brain as a hard drive.
Right. That's the standard model, more or less. I learned something, the capital of France is Paris, and I store that information in my head. It's physically encoded in my neurons like a file on a disk. If I remember my 5th birthday, I'm just accessing an old video file.
Exactly. That's the materialist view. The memory, the consciousness, it's all inside the skull. Jiang says, no, that is fundamentally wrong. He argues that if the brain were just a hard drive, then creativity, intuition, and moments of genius wouldn't work the way they do. He proposes that the brain is not a storage device. It's a receiver. It's an antenna.
Okay, hold on. An antenna for what? What's it picking up?
The vibrations of the universe. He uses the cloud analogy, which is perfect for us in 2026. Think about your laptop. Your laptop has some RAM, some local storage, sure. But the vast, vast majority of the information it can access isn't on the laptop.
It's in the cloud, the internet.
Exactly. Your laptop is just a terminal that accesses it.
Yeah.
Jiang suggests that there is a universal consciousness, a spaceless, timeless information field where all information, all memories, all archetypes, all potential futures and pasts exist.
Whoa, okay. So when we have an idea, we're not actually creating it from scratch inside our own heads. We're downloading it.
You're downloading it. Or, more accurately, you are tuning your antenna to a specific frequency. And this applies directly to Radio-mannadoro and his claims of entanglement and superposition.
Those are physics terms.
Right. In quantum physics, superposition means a particle can exist in multiple states or places at once until it's observed. The artist is essentially saying the ideas in his song already existed in the future state of 2026, and he just tuned his biological antenna to that frequency back in 1996. The song was in superposition, existing in both the past and the future at the same time.
Let me push back on this a little bit. If my brain is just a radio and the music is coming from somewhere else, does that eliminate free will? If I decide to write a grocery list, am I downloading milk, eggs, bread from the universal consciousness? Or is that just me, needing milk?
That's the million-dollar philosophical question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Jiang would probably argue that the grocery list is low-level static. It's local traffic, your body's needs. But the big ideas, the great symphonies, the scientific breakthroughs, the prophetic poems, those are clear signals from the universal cloud. He uses Homer as his prime example.
The Iliad and the Odyssey.
Exactly. Think about it. Homer, or whoever Homer was, wrote the Iliad roughly 2,500 years ago. He wrote about the character of Achilles. Now, Achilles feels profoundly real to us even today. We understand his rage, his pride, his grief. Jiang's question is, how did a man 2,500 years ago create a character so psychologically complex and true that he survives millennia? How does Achilles still make us feel things?
I mean, the simple answer is it's just brilliant writing.
Jiang says that's not enough. He argues that Achilles isn't just a figment of Homer's brain. He says Achilles is an archetype that exists as a real energetic pattern in the universal consciousness. The perfect warrior. Homer didn't invent Achilles. He was just the antenna sensitive enough to pick up the Achilles frequency and transcribe it into words.
So Homer didn't create him. He discovered him. He channeled him.
He channeled him. And in exactly the same way, Radio-mannadoro is saying, I didn't invent the living crystal. I didn't invent the psychophysical collapse. I just happened to tune my antenna to the frequency of 2026.
Which is exactly what he says in the manifesto. I captured and didn't even know what I was capturing.
It's the perfect definition of the artist as a medium. The artist is the radio. If you smash the radio, the music stops playing in the room, but the signal is still in the air. The song Cristallo Vivente was always in the air, vibrating in the future. He just happened to be the one who built the radio that could catch it in 1996.
That's a kind of beautiful idea, but it's also deeply unsettling because it implies the future is already out there, fully formed, broadcast to get signal back to us. We just haven't tuned in yet.
History is a spiral fractal, the artist says. It's not a straight line. It's all happening at once, just on different loops of the spiral.
Okay, so we have the artifact, the song, and we have the proposed mechanism, the brain as an antenna. Now we have to get into the why, the philosophy driving all of this. Because the source material from Radio-mannadoro isn't just lyrics, it's this incredibly heavy philosophical manifesto. And it all centers on a word we don't hear very often, Gnosticism.
Gnosticism is the key that unlocks this entire worldview. It's an ancient religious and philosophical movement, mostly from the first few centuries AD, and the central argument the artist makes is about the fundamental battle between logos and frequency.
Logos, that usually means logic, right? Or the word, like in the Gospel of John, in the beginning was the word.
Correct. In all of mainstream Western theology and philosophy, logos is seen as divine order, its structure, its rationality, it's the bedrock of our civilization. But Radio-mannadoro takes that idea and flips it completely on its head. He says, before logos comes frequency. Before the word comes vibration.
And he calls logos a prison. He literally says words are prisons.
This is pure classic Gnostic thought. The Gnostics believe that the material world, the world we can see and touch and name, is a trap, a cosmic mistake. They believed it wasn't created by the true, ultimate, unknowable God, but by a lesser, flawed, and often malevolent deity called the Demiurge.
The Demiurge. It sounds like a villain from a video game.
In the Gnostic narrative, he kind of is. He's the craftsman who built the prison, and he thinks he's the true God. And when this Demiurge created the material world and breathed life into humanity, he breathed a false logos, a false logic, a flawed operating system.
So according to the artist, language itself, the words we're using right now, the grammar, the definitions, is actually part of the trap.
It's the primary tool of the trap. It's designed to confuse us and limit us. He directly references the story of the Tower of Babel.
The biblical story where God confuses everyone's languages so they can't cooperate to build a tower to heaven?
Exactly. Now, usually that story is taught as a moral lesson about the sin of pride. But the artist reinterprets it through a Gnostic lens. It's a control mechanism. If we're all speaking different flawed languages, if our logos is broken and fragmented, we can't communicate clearly. We can't cooperate to reach the sky. We can't attain true enlightenment or escape the material prison. Words limit the intellect. They box reality into tiny, imperfect categories.
If I say the word tree, you picture a tree, but you lose the infinite potential of what treeness could be.
Precisely. The word becomes a cage for the concept, which is why he gives the instruction. Don't speak, sing like birds, fly high, and don't play a rigged game.
Because music is the liberation.
Music is the escape hatch. It bypasses the logical brain, the part of us that's trapped in the Demiurge's matrix of words, and it hits our resonance directly. It communicates through feeling and frequency, not definitions. He calls music a language yet to be deciphered. It's the key to the cage because the Demiurge, the prison warden, can't control vibration the way he can control words.
Okay, we have to touch on the specific theology in this manifesto because it is, well, it's extremely provocative. And I want to be really clear to you listening. We are just reporting what the source text says. We are not endorsing this. We're not attacking it. We are simply analyzing the artist's worldview.
It's important to state that, yes, because he presents a complete inversion of traditional religious figures.
He does. And again, this is consistent with some very old, very obscure Gnostic traditions, but it can be quite shocking to modern ears. The text explicitly argues that Jesus was the true Lucifer.
Jesus was Lucifer. I mean, just saying that sentence out loud, it sounds like the definition of heresy to most people.
It does, but we have to look at the etymology he's using. He's very specific about it. What does the name Lucifer actually mean in Latin?
It means light bringer.
Exactly.
Lux fer, the bearer of light. The artist argues that the historical figure of Jesus was a rebel against the Demiurge, the flawed creator god of this material trap. He came to bring light, which in Gnosticism means gnosis or knowledge. He came to wake humanity up and show them the keys to escape the prison. So in this radical view, being the light bringer is the ultimate heroic act.
So he's saying the labels got switched somewhere along the way. The good guy was painted as the villain.
Essentially. He argues that the institutional church, and he specifically calls out Peter and Paul, are the real antagonists in the story. He calls the church a business and imperialism. He argues they took this rebel light-bringer message of spiritual escape and twisted it into a control mechanism to manage the prison more effectively. They buried the Gnostic truth and replaced it with rules and dogmas to control people's bodies and minds.
And he also makes a point to redefine Satan.
Yes, he notes that in its original Hebrew, Ha-Satan isn't a proper name. It's a title. It means the accuser or the opposer. It's a role in a heavenly court, like a prosecuting attorney. He carefully distinguishes that from the Luciferian search for light and knowledge.
It's a complete theological inversion, he's saying. The world is upside down. What society tells you is holy and good, logos, order, the church, is actually the control system. And what society tells you is forbidden and evil, rebellion, hidden knowledge, the lightbringer, is actually the only path to freedom.
It's very much like the film The Matrix. The idea that the world you perceive as real is actually an elaborate illusion generated to keep you docile and under control.
The Matrix is pure Gnosticism for the digital age. It's the exact same story. Neo is the one who wakes up from the false reality created by the Demiurge, which in that case is the machines.
And speaking of populations who are still asleep, the artist says we're currently living in the Kali Yuga.
That's a concept from Hindu cosmology, right?
Correct. The Kali Yuga is the last of the four great world ages. It is the age of darkness, conflict, spiritual ignorance, and materialism. The artist is saying society is buried alive in this dark age. And he says the people who populate this era are called Illico.
Illico, what does that mean?
It's most likely his version of the Gnostic term helix.
And what's a hillock?
In some Gnostic systems, humanity is divided into three types. At the top are the pneumatics, who are pure spirit, filled with divine light. In the middle were the psychics, who had a soul and could choose to go up or down. And at the bottom were the helix, who were purely material, matter-bound. They didn't have the divine spark.
So they were soulless. That's a pretty harsh judgment on people.
It is. The artist's text says they are without possibility of redemption because they don't have that inner spark, that antenna, to tune into the higher frequency. They're just part of the background noise of the Kali Yuga. In modern terms, you could call them the non-player characters of the simulation.
Wow. It's a bleak and incredibly intense worldview. But it does explain why he sees art as being so critically important. If we're trapped in a false reality, in a dark age, populated by these matter-bound Illico, then a song like Cristallo Vivente isn't just a pop song.
It's a flare. It's a rescue signal.
A rescue signal broadcast from outside of time, intended only for the few people who still have a working antenna to receive it.
That's it exactly.
This idea of history not being a straight line but a spiral, it leads us perfectly into our next section, the cultural spiral. Because the artist doesn't just pull from ancient theology, he references some very specific cultural touchstones to explain this Gnostic Noir mood. He talks about David Lynch, Twin Peaks.
He quotes the show directly. The owls are not what they seem.
I'm a huge Twin Peaks fan, but why that show specifically? What's the connection?
Twin Peaks is the ultimate example of what you could call Gnostic Noir.
Gnostic Noir, I love that phrase. That's perfect.
Think about the show. On the surface, it's a quirky, small town. Cherry pie, damn good coffee, high school drama. It looks like the real material world. But just underneath that surface, there are spirits. There's the Black Lodge and the White Lodge. There are hidden forces, vibrations, electricity humming in the air. It's a world where these invisible Gnostic forces influence reality, and only a select few people, like Agent Cooper, can perceive them.
So Radio-mannadoro sees himself in that tradition.
He identifies with it completely. He sees his work in the same lineage as David Lynch, Fritz Lang's Metropolis, Stanley Kubrick. He calls it the cinematography of disclosure.
The idea that certain art isn't for entertainment, it's to reveal the hidden truth that the logos of the mainstream world tries to hide.
Exactly. And speaking of hidden truths and beings from another place, we have to talk about aliens. The source material from Professor Endersby about aliens in science fiction fits so perfectly here, because Radio-mannadoro absolutely views himself as an alien. He has that line, "Chi osa giudicare me," who dares judge me, as if he's totally outside the human system.
Endersby's core point is that in science fiction, the alien is almost always a metaphor for the other. It's a way for us to explore what it means to be human by looking at something that isn't.
And we have some perfect examples from the Star Trek database that connect right back to the song. We already talked about the Crystalline Entity, but Endersby also brings up the Horta.
From the original series, The Devil in the Dark, a classic episode.
It is. The Horta is a silicon-based life form.
Silicon again. There it is.
It keeps coming back. The Horta looks like a big lump of rock, or maybe molten lava. It lives deep underground. The human miners on the planet are terrified of it. They see it as a monster because it's burning through rock and killing miners who get in its way. Their only impulse is to kill it.
But then Spock, the ultimate outsider, shows up.
Spock, the perfect bridge between the human and the alien, performs a mind meld with it. And he realizes this creature isn't a monster, it's a mother. It's protecting its eggs, which are these silicon spheres the miners have been carelessly destroying, thinking they were just rocks.
So the monster was just a misunderstood mother protecting her children.
A silicon-based mother. Just like the living crystal. This forces us to re-examine the song. Is the Cristallo Vivente a monster, a parasite, like the Crystalline Entity? Or is it more like the Horta, a different form of life that we just don't understand, and in our ignorance, we're causing the conflict?
Maybe the psychophysical collapse the song talks about isn't an attack. Maybe it's just the sound of us failing to communicate with this new silicon consciousness we've created.
We're the miners, breaking the eggs of this new life form, and then wondering why it's fighting back against us.
Then there's Octavia Butler's Xenogenesis trilogy, which Endersby also discusses, the Oankali aliens.
This may be even more directly relevant to the artist's manifesto. The Oankali are genetic traders. They travel the universe and merge their DNA with other species. They find humanity on a ruined Earth and see us as having a fatal flaw, which they call the human contradiction.
And what is that?
The combination of high intelligence with a deeply ingrained hierarchical instinct. Butler's idea is that humans are smart enough to build nuclear weapons, but they're too driven by hierarchy and dominance to ever stop themselves from using them.
Wait a minute. The artist's manifesto explicitly mentions genetic traders and the human contradiction. I totally missed that direct connection at first.
It's a direct reference. He talks about the human contradiction of intelligence versus hierarchy leading to self-destruction. It suggests he sees the illico, the soulless masses, as the ultimate victims of this biological flaw. They're smart, but they're trapped in the hierarchical power games of the Demiurge's world.
The Star Trek database is just full of these others that fit the theme. We have the Tholians and other crystalline, non-humanoid species, and the Medusans, non-corporeal beings of pure thought who are so beautiful that if a human looks at them without a special visor, the sight drives them insane.
Which echoes the artist's lyric perfectly. Memories to no more I can't. That feeling of sensory overload. The Gnostic idea that seeing true reality, seeing the divine, might actually shatter the unprepared human mind. If you look at the Medusan without a filter, you go mad. If you look at the living crystal of reality without the filter of logos, maybe your psyche collapses.
So if we try to synthesize all of this, the artist feels like an alien, a stranger in a strange land. He believes he's trapped in the Kali Yuga, this dark material world surrounded by these soulless illico, and he's using music vibration to send a signal to other aliens, other souls with working antennas, to tell them there's a way out.
That is a core message of the entire project. He is the alien soul broadcasting on a frequency that only other alien souls can pick up. And he sent the broadcast 30 years ago, knowing the signal would only become clear enough to understand now.
Which brings us to the final act, the future past. Because the artist has a very specific warning for us here in 2026. And frankly, given the state of the world, it's probably a warning we need to hear.
He warns, very explicitly, against polarization, left versus right.
He says that the entire political dialectic only serves the emperor.
This goes right back to the words are prisons idea. If you are arguing about politics using the deviated language of the system, left, right, conservative, liberal, you are just feeding the Demiurge. You are playing the rigged game on his board by his rules.
It's the classic divide and conquer strategy.
Exactly. He argues that political infighting is the ultimate distraction. It keeps you focused on the horizontal plane fighting your neighbor, so you never look up at the vertical plane at the possibility of escaping the prison altogether. His instruction is clear. Do not use their deviated language. Use music, frequencies, vibrations, resonance.
It's fascinating because here in 2026, polarization is at an all-time high. Everyone is screaming at each other, and his song from 1996 predicts the result: psychophysical collapse.
And he offers a way out. Entanglement.
Let's just revisit that quantum physics concept one last time to make sure we've got it. Quantum entanglement.
Entanglement is when two particles become linked in such a way that the state of one instantly influences the state of the other, no matter how far apart they are. Einstein called it spooky action at a distance. The artist is applying this concept to time. He's saying the 1996 song and the 2026 reality are entangled particles.
So by listening to the song now, in 2026, are we somehow affecting the song back in 1996? Is it a two-way street?
Theoretically, in his model, yes. If time is a spiral, not a line, then an action in the present can send a resonance back into the past. By listening to Cristallo Vivente today, we are completing the circuit that was opened 30 years ago.
There is one other thread he mentions which ties together the illico and the living crystal, the automaton.
The fear of the soulless machine. This is a classic sci-fi trope that he's recasting in Gnostic terms. In Star Trek, you have the Borg, a cyborg hive mind that strips away all individuality. You have nanites, microscopic robots. You have exocomps, service robots that suddenly become sentient.
The artist seems to despise the illico, the hillix, because they're already like automatons. They're buried alive in materialism, just following their programming.
Right. He contrasts them with the serpent in the Garden of Eden. Remember, in his inverted Gnostic view, the serpent was the hero, the one trying to give Adam and Eve knowledge to wake them up. The illico are the ones who refused the apple. They are the ones who chose to stay as happy, ignorant robots in the Garden of the Demiurge.
But the living crystal itself,
Right.
that metaphor is so tricky, because a crystal isn't alive like an animal. It's rigid, it's sharp, it grows in fixed patterns.
Exactly. Cristallo Vivente. It's beautiful, but it's a trap. It uses you and takes you. I think ultimately the song is a warning about the material world itself, amplified by technology. The world is a living, crystal glittering, fascinating, complex, but it consumes your spirit. It is the crystalline entity. And the only way to avoid being completely absorbed
Is to vibrate at a different frequency.
is to tune your antenna away from the frequency of the crystal and towards the universal cloud to find the real music that's hidden in the electricity blowing through the leaves.
So Cristallo Vivente is a metaphor for the rigid, sharp, beautiful, but ultimately trapping nature of the Demiurge's creation. And the music itself is the escape hatch.
That's the final synthesis. That's the whole message in a nutshell.
Wow, okay. We have covered a massive amount of ground here. We've gone from a 30-year-old analog track to Gnostic theology to fringe neuroscience to silicon-based life forms in Star Trek.
It's a dense, strange web of ideas, but it does hold together in its own weird way.
So let's try to wrap this up. What's the takeaway for you listening to this? We have this artist, Radio-mannadoro, who is essentially saying, I told you so 30 years in advance, but what do we do with that information?
I think the takeaway is about how we view ourselves and how we view art. First, the antenna theory. If Jiang is even partly right, and if this artist is onto something, we need to stop thinking of ourselves as isolated hard drives. We are receivers. We are constantly tuning in to different frequencies. So the question becomes, what station are you tuned to?
Right.
Are you tuned to the false logos, the noise, the politics, the social media arguments, the polarization? Or are you trying to tune your antenna to the universal consciousness, the archetypes, the music, the vibration? It's a call to check your signal.
A call to be more conscious about what information you're letting in.
Exactly. And secondly, it changes how you should approach art. We can't just look at art as entertainment anymore. A song like Cristallo Vivente isn't just something to tap your foot to. The artist is presenting it as a glitch in the matrix, a message from the future past. It suggests that true artists are kind of time traveler. They are the sensitive antennas picking up signals that the rest of us haven't received yet.
It makes you want to go back and listen to all your old favorite albums and wonder what predictions are hiding in those lyrics. What frequencies did they capture that we all missed at the time?
It definitely changes how you listen. You stop listening just for the melody and you start listening for the prophecy.
I want to leave you with one final thought, a provocative one. We've talked all this time about the brain as an antenna. We've talked about Radio-mannadoro picking up signals from outside of time. But if we're all just antennas, who is broadcasting the signal?
That is the ultimate question, isn't it?
Is it this universal cloud of consciousness? Is it the true God from outside the Gnostic trap? Or could it be us, broadcasting from our own future back to our past selves, sending warnings, sending clues, trying to help ourselves avoid the worst outcomes? And if the Kali Yuga, this age of darkness, is really ending, as these grand cycles suggest, what is the music of the next cycle going to sound like?
Hopefully it sounds a little more like freedom.
I hope so too. Until then, maybe take the artist's advice. Go outside, listen to the silence between the leaves, vento tra le foglie, and try to find your own frequency. Thanks for diving deep with us.
See you in the future past.